ABC24 this week to talk about Memphis Tourism. It is a well-known agency that represents our city and boasts about our city and tries to get tourists to come to our city and gets a lot of money to do that from the hotel motel tax and some other tax funding as well. Sam Hardiman with the story this week about it. I guess I'll start by asking you, what was the impetus for the story? What made you decide?
Yeah, so what made me decide was simply Memphis Tourism bought the Memphis May building. And so
right next door. Right.
Essentially next door. I mean, you know, a rock throw away. And I was like, where does that money come from? I knew they were funded by hotel motel tax. I was like, well, how much money do they have left over? And I went and looked at their 990, which is publicly available. And I saw that at the end of June 2022, they were sitting on $27 million in cash.
Let's put up the graphic we made. You can kind of go through that. The $27 million cash on hand.
On hand, yeah. This isn't even just accounts receivable. This counts what they have on hand.
And they make $16 million a year in tax revenue, and they spend about 85% of the money that they've received. At least that's the average over the last 5 years. Then you went and looked at some other cities. What do those convention and visitors bureaus spend in terms of the percentage of their revenues, and found that from San Diego to Nashville to Atlanta, three examples you picked, significantly more than 85%, close to every penny they make gets spent. Did you get any explanation from Memphis Tourism and Kevin Kane, who runs it, why they're sitting on so much?
Well, I mean, Kevin Kane, he said, you know, it wasn't his intention to build, you know, I think a fortress on his balance sheet was, I'm paraphrasing him here. But at the same time, what he said is throughout his time in the CVB, he has said, you know, essentially we were a slow pay for a long time because before our revenue sort of grew, because essentially in 2015, they were taken out in large part of the city hotel motel tax and instead got a city fee, okay? At the same time, in 2011, they started receiving far more money from Shelby County's hotel motel tax when the convention center was bought out. The city bought out the county's interest in the convention center, which made more money flow to them. And so their spending habits really haven't changed since the mid-2010s. And so now they pull in a lot more revenue and really spend at those mid-2010s levels that they're spending at now. That's really what I found in my reporting. And so you look at those other agencies nationwide, you know, Atlanta, San Diego, and Nashville right down the road. These are much bigger convention and visitors bureaus. I mean, the Nashville Convention and Visitors Bureau is pulling in about $30 million in annual revenue a year twice of Memphis, and it is finding uses for that money. And it's running, in some years, I looked at the annual deficits it would run. Each one of these agencies ran a net loss in at least one of the past 5 years. It's been almost 10 years since Memphis Tourism ran a net loss. And so, like, a lot of these agencies, if they have some cash on hand, they'll run a net loss and then, you know, sort of make up the difference another year.
In fact, he said to you, we want to be, he made almost it's the financially prudent thing to do. You want to have like 9 months of reserves to access. He made the case that the county has often been very late in paying what is supposed to pay to Memphis Tourism. What's your thoughts about that?
I mean, you know, I'm not paid for my thoughts, just my reporting. But
compared to other cities, what was? I mean,
I think he's talking about 6 to 9 months, and if you look at his balance sheet, there's no way of looking at it without seeing about 2 years of expenses there, right? And so he could comfortably be down around 15 million and still have about a year's worth of expenses there. And he's at 27 million at the end of June 2022. We'll see what the 990 when they file it this spring showed. But like it'll be very, very interesting to see. And
then you had a part two, and I'm going to go, these are my last numbers, and I want to get some reaction from Otis and Deidre. But we learned that Kevin Kane's income to run Memphis Tourism, I was surprised, $601,800. We learned that $40,000 in unreported political donations were made by Memphis Tourism, and then there's that $1.55 million that was spent to buy the Memphis May offices that Sam spoke about. Otis, your read on this reporting and just what we learned about a fairly visible agency here in the city.
Well, it was just eye-opening. That's the first thing that I'll say, and I will talk about the journalism of it because I can't match Sam on the details. He's got the details down packed, but I know journalism, and this is textbook journalism because what it does is holds an agency that gets tax money accountable for what they're doing, and there are too many people in this community who basically have no clue about what Memphis Tourism does, and they just sort of, well, there's nothing I can do to find out about it. So this, from a journalism standpoint, this was the kind of watchdog reporting that makes a community understand what's going on in that community.
I also think that it's going to open the eyes of some elected officials to ask tougher questions about those dollars,
Yeah.
too. I mean, the whole role is to market the city of Memphis, to
Right.
try and get conventions to come to the city. But do we have the capacity from a hotel standpoint, too, to bring in like a Nashville or a San Diego? I don't think we're there yet.
Not even close.
Not even close. So, but if he's marketing the city, he has the money to do it. You know, but it's a fine balance because you want those big conventions to come here.
Right.
But do we have the capacity to host them?
Right.
So I'm sure Kevin and his team are looking at that as well.
Well, and there was even a story earlier last week about whether Memphis is capable of hosting the NBA All-Star Game. Right now, absolutely not, I wouldn't think. To your point about do we have the capacity, do we have the hotel, especially downtown, that can do this kind of thing? And the answer is I don't think so.
But how do you get those hotels? And all of those are going to require public money, public incentive in some way. We saw the Grand Hyatt Hotel, which was the last convention center hotel we've had proposed. That fell apart really for lack of more subsidy from the Strickland administration. They sort of balked at a certain point. So the question is well, what about those dollars? And I'm not making an argument that those dollars should be reallocated anywhere else, but like the hotel motel dollars is a pot of money that right now goes to Memphis Tourism, and that's essentially the only place it goes.
Right.
And is that in perpetuity what's going to happen in Memphis, Tennessee? And if so, you probably don't. That's taking one tool away from the toolbox for a lot of things.
That's true.
The broader needs of government.
And then tourism taking another hit this week with learning that the riverboat tour cruise line,
Right.
the name escapes me now, Riverboat
American Queen.
American Queen, thank you, is going belly up unless they can find an investor very soon. I remember, again, this is an example of taxpayer dollars going in. We had to build that dock. It was going to be able to
State
accommodate.
Yeah.
State
That's
helped,
right. That's right.
and they were going to locate their headquarters here, which they
Right.
did, and only to find out that they had moved them back to Florida. But again, taxpayers look at, people want their pilots, their tax breaks, and now we've got a dock that's, there are still 2 cruise lines apparently that will be using it, but Kevin Kane still wants to have another river dock made.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's more money.
it's a tough sell.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
is.
problem.
It is.
All right.
But we need amenities, so.
We do, and we want
Yeah,
people to come
we
downtown.
do.
Right.
And he made a very good point that, I think 10,000 hotel rooms a year from this company before the bad news we got about their financial situation. But nonetheless, it's another hit for tourism. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back here, we're going to talk about controversy in Lakeland that we just love this story because it's just so unique. What would you do if a neighbor in your neighborhood put a big old sign with the F word on that sign in reference to the 2 presidential candidates? That's exactly the controversy. We'll talk about it in just a moment.